By the middle of the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had reached the height of its power. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, it stood as one of the world's greatest superpowers. Suleiman was more than a conqueror. He was a lawgiver, military strategist, and ruler of an empire stretching across 3 continents. In 1529, Ottoman armies reached the gates of Vienna, bringing the empire to the very edge of Central Europe. Across the Mediterranean, Ottoman fleets projected power from North Africa to the eastern seas, making the empire a dominant naval force. From the Silk Road to the Mediterranean, the Ottoman Empire controlled some of the world's most valuable trade routes, connecting 3 continents through commerce. Trade filled the imperial treasury, funding armies, palaces, roads, bridges, and one of the most sophisticated governments of its age. While soldiers expanded the empire, one man transformed its cities. His name was Mimar Sinan. His vision gave rise to the Suleymaniye Mosque, a timeless monument to Ottoman ingenuity. The empire invested not only in armies, but also in knowledge, producing scholars, engineers, doctors, and master craftsmen. The Ottoman Empire was no longer just feared for its armies. It had become a civilization admired for its wealth, architecture, and knowledge. Beyond its battlefields, the Ottoman Empire flourished through poetry, music, calligraphy, and a culture that inspired generations across 3 continents. Power alone could not hold such a vast empire together. Law, administration, and discipline became the foundation of Ottoman stability. At its height, the Ottoman Empire stretched across Europe, Asia, and Africa, linking diverse peoples under one imperial banner. Yet beneath the empire's golden age, unseen pressures were growing. New oceans, new rivals, and changing economies were quietly rewriting the rules of power. At its greatest moment, the seeds of decline had already been planted. The empire that had mastered continents would soon face a world that was changing faster than ever before. At the heart of Ottoman power stood an army unlike any the world had ever seen, the Janissaries, disciplined, loyal, and feared across Europe. Victory was never built on courage alone. Behind every campaign stood an extraordinary military machine. Ottoman success depended on logistics as much as battlefield skill. Across mountains and rivers, the Ottoman army marched toward Vienna, one of Europe's strongest fortified cities. For weeks, Ottoman guns thundered against Vienna's walls, but the city refused to fall. The Ottomans left Vienna without victory, but their empire remained the dominant military power of its age. "We march with our strength intact. Their threat is far from over." One failed siege could not erase decades of conquest. Ottoman power still stretched across continents, commanding respect and fear alike. On land, the Ottomans seemed unstoppable, but beyond the horizon, another battlefield awaited the Mediterranean Sea, where a legendary admiral would change history forever. The Ottomans ruled vast lands, but true supremacy required control of the sea. The Mediterranean had become the empire's next battlefield. One admiral would transform the Ottoman navy into the most feared fleet in the Mediterranean. His name was Hayreddin Barbarossa. Barbarossa did more than win battles. He built a navy capable of protecting an empire across 3 continents, emphasized training, discipline, and intelligence gathering. Ottoman naval power became an extension of imperial administration. In 1538, rival fleets gathered near Preveza. The battle would decide who truly ruled the Mediterranean. Through brilliant tactics and disciplined command, Barbarossa secured one of the Ottoman navy's greatest victories.
Exploit their flanks! Drive them back! For the Sultan, victory!
After Preveza, the Mediterranean recognized a new naval superpower. Ottoman influence at sea had reached its golden age. The Ottomans had mastered land and sea, but their greatest strength was still hidden, not in their armies, but in the wealth flowing through their empire. Empires rose through conquest, but the Ottomans became rich because they controlled the crossroads of the world. Every sunrise brought ships from distant kingdoms, Constantinople had become the beating heart of global commerce. Its harbors received merchants from Venice, Persia, Arabia, and India. Day and night, caravans crossed deserts and mountains, carrying the wealth of Asia toward the Ottoman world. Every caravan and every ship strengthened the empire's treasury, turning commerce into military power. This wealth financed the Janissary Corps, naval expansion, and grand public works, sustaining the empire's power. Trade was not merely wealth, it was the engine that powered armies, cities, and an empire spanning 3 continents. The Ottoman Empire ruled for centuries because it controlled geography itself. Whoever controlled the crossroads of the world controlled history. The empire had mastered land, sea, and trade, but beyond the Atlantic horizon, a silent revolution had already begun. As Ottoman armies conquered new lands, one man reshaped the empire's skyline. His name was Mimar Sinan. Mosques, bridges, aqueducts, and schools became symbols of an empire built not only for war, but for generations to come. The Ottoman Empire invested not only in soldiers, but in scholars, physicians, engineers, and teachers. Observe the geometry of this equation. This remedy will restore the balance. The stars guide our calculation. This arch will support the span. Calligraphy, poetry, and music flourished, reflecting the confidence of an empire at its cultural peak. Suleiman was remembered not only as a conqueror, but as Kanuni, the lawgiver who strengthened the empire through justice. Yet beneath the empire's golden age, quiet changes were unfolding. Across distant oceans, a new world was beginning to challenge the old. The Ottoman Empire had reached the summit of its power. But history never stands still, and the next chapter would reveal the first cracks beneath the empire's golden foundation. While the Ottoman Empire celebrated its golden age, a silent revolution was unfolding beyond the horizon. The center of the world was beginning to move. At its greatest moment, the seeds of decline had already been planted. The empire that had mastered geography would soon face a world where geography itself was changing. For more than 2 centuries, the Ottoman Empire had reshaped continents, commanded the seas, and connected the world's greatest trade routes. But every empire faces the same question: can yesterday's success survive tomorrow's world? In 1566, the empire lost the man who had defined its greatest age. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent was gone. The greatest ruler was dead, yet his army continued marching, unaware that history had already changed. This secrecy demonstrated the strength of Ottoman institutions, functioning with discipline and order. A new sultan now ruled the empire, but every successor would inevitably be measured against Suleiman.
Hünkârım, bu kılıcı alın. Kabul ediyorum.
While the Ottomans looked inward, Europe was entering an age of exploration, commerce, and transformation. For centuries, riches had crossed Ottoman lands. Now, increasing amounts of global commerce were flowing across the oceans instead. The empire was still mighty, but history had begun asking a dangerous question. Could yesterday's empire adapt to tomorrow's world? The throne remained, but the man who had commanded absolute respect was gone. The palace entered a new political age. As some sultans became less active in government, powerful officials increasingly shaped the empire's daily decisions. The Ottoman administrative system was designed to function through institutions rather than one individual. The empire's greatest soldiers were no longer only warriors. Increasingly, they became a powerful political force. Their military importance remained significant, but their growing political role sometimes complicated reform efforts in later centuries. From Hungary to Arabia, millions lived under one empire. Governing such diversity was both its greatest strength and greatest challenge. Every frontier demanded soldiers, every province required officials, every victory carried a price. Maintaining a vast empire required enormous resources, gradually becoming more difficult to manage. The empire still appeared unshakable. But powerful rivals were learning, adapting, and preparing for a different kind of war. For decades, the Habsburgs had stood as the Ottoman Empire's greatest rival in Europe. Neither side could afford to lose. After Ottoman victories, Central Europe became the main frontier between the empire. While Europe demanded armies in the west, another powerful empire waited in the east, the Safavids of Persia. The Ottoman Empire faced constant pressure along its eastern frontier. In 1593, another brutal conflict erupted. It would drain men, money, and hope for more than a decade. For centuries, Europe had feared the Ottoman army. Now, its rivals were studying it and learning how to fight back. European states observed Ottoman military organization closely. Every victory demanded more soldiers. Every campaign emptied more of the imperial treasury. The empire still possessed immense wealth, but maintaining such a vast military machine became increasingly expensive. The empire could still win battles, but every victory was becoming more expensive than the last. The greatest threat to the Ottoman Empire did not arrive with an army, it arrived hidden inside silver coins. From Spanish mines in the Andes, silver flooded Europe and the Ottoman world, fueling a price revolution. As silver became more common, prices climbed. Wealth remained, but purchasing power slowly disappeared. Inflation affected everyday life. Food, horses, weapons, clothing, and military supplies became more expensive. Every campaign demanded more gunpowder, more horses, more food, and more gold than ever before. As prices increased, the cost of sustaining imperial power rose as well. The empire remained powerful, but ordinary families increasingly felt the burden of a changing economy. Economic pressure reached villages and towns across the empire. Conditions varied, but economic uncertainty gradually became more visible in daily life. The question was no longer whether the empire was strong, but whether it could change before the world changed even faster. The empire had not fallen, but the age that created its greatness was coming to an end. Many believed the Ottoman Empire had begun to weaken, but the empire was vast territories. Its navy protects strategic sea lanes. The real story was not sudden decline, but a long struggle. Europe's armies were changing. Gunpowder, discipline, and new tactics would reshape the battlefield forever. Victory increasingly depended on logistics, technology, training, and finance, not courage alone. One final campaign would determine whether the empire could reclaim its dominance in Central Europe. The Battle for Vienna would become one of history's greatest turning points. The defeat marked a major strategic setback for the Ottoman Empire. In the decades that followed, it shifted from expansion to defense. Even after Vienna, the Ottoman Empire remained a global power for generations. The years after Vienna were difficult, but they were not the end of the empire. Ottoman introduced military and administrative reforms, and the Ottoman Empire did not survive for 6 centuries because it never lost. It survived because it adapted, endured, and reinvented itself, again and again. Empires are not remembered only for the wars they fought, but for the worlds they built. And for more than 600 years, the Ottoman Empire helped shape the course of history itself.